What if Order 66 caused Ahsoka to be sent back in time? Part 5. Master Windu dismisses Ahsoka from the High Council chamber with the order to record everything that she had told them. As she cast one last look at the council members, she could tell that there were only a few that believed her. It was the fact that the healer had brought about the chips that had convinced them to do anything. Her experience and testimony was just a story for them, a fairy tale. Their lack of faith and trust in her brought back memories of when they had kicked her out of the order, something she hadn't told them for fear that they might do something embarrassing. They were acting the same as before, and the doubts and uncertainty of herself that she had felt then began to creep back in. Ahsoka just hoped that she had made the right decision by telling them anything. Leaving the High Council spire, she immediately sought out Fari and told her that she had somehow come back to the past and everything that had happened before. She both sought forgiveness and comfort for keeping such secrets, and Fari was more than willing to give it. They talked for the rest of the day, with Fari bombarding Ahsoka with questions again of the future, making the doubts and fears of the present fade away. The next day, she found Anakin and told him the truth as well, but left out that they had been master and apprentice. She also took the opportunity to ask that he stay away from Palpatine, or at least be wary of him. Anakin was a bit perturbed by it, but agreed anyway. The doubt in herself and anxiety of the future crept back in, and caused Ahsoka to be on edge and down. Fari hoped, but her master appeared to be staying in the temple, and Ahsoka didn't want to get between them. So, instead, she did what her master had taught her. When she wasn't writing the report for the council, she was in the training hall, channeling her emotions into the pod. This also conveniently allowed her to clear her head and think. The findings with the chips made her certain that Chancellor Palpatine was associated with the Sith, if not Darth Sidious himself. It angered her that he had used so many people and caused so much destruction, just to wipe out the Jedi. She understood that the Republic could have been fooled by him to be elected, but how could the Jedi? They had blindly followed him into a war they had no right fighting in, a war that sole purpose now appeared to be the destruction of the Jedi. With their attitude towards what she had said, and what they had done previously, perhaps the Jedi Order itself was doomed. Perhaps the only way for the Jedi to live was to leave the Order. Though, in the end, that hadn't worked for her. The High Council's meeting lasted for several days after that, in which several senior Jedi and Jedi loyal senators made appearances, but they never called for her again. It seemed apparent that they didn't want to hear her story again, or her view on the situation, only what facts she had to offer with the report. When she finished compiling every important detail she could remember, she gave the report to Battlemaster Syndraulic, whom she was happy to see again. She had felt petty and hadn't wanted to share it with them, but forced her to have some hope. She had only included the vile things though, leaving out anything personal or the mistakes of others. Ahsoka believed that they could change, and that it would be wrong to punish them for something they might do. She also felt guilty that she hadn't done more to change Master Bulq's fate. The council was another matter. After everything that they had done, she could no longer bring herself to fully trust them as a whole anymore. She instead constantly sought out Plo Koon for updates from the meeting, and it kept her surprisingly well informed, albeit keeping out sensitive details. This apparent faith and trust in her slowly made Ahsoka feel more at ease and confident in herself. When the High Council meeting finally concluded, Plo Koon was the first to know the outcome. Members of the High Council were still divided on all aspects, so all they had settled on were three things: that the clone army was on the Sith side and were to be ignored and avoided. They were to start moving the main location of the Jedi Temple off Coruscant, and then they would wait for the Sith to actively reveal themselves to the Republic. Ahsoka felt sorry for the clones. She knew they were puppets, but understood the decision was likely for the best. She was also fine with the Jedi moving off Coruscant. Ahsoka felt more at tune with the Force and at home when surrounded by nature than she did on Coruscant surrounded by Durocrete. This could just be because of her early life before she was brought to the temple though. Waiting, on the other hand, was what she had been trying to stop doing. She had wanted to stop only reacting to the Sith, but she should have realized the High Council wouldn't do anything. They were complacent and too close ties with the Senate. Perhaps this was again the best thing for them at this time though. A quick action would be nice, but from her experience, it might end up doing more harm than good. She must not have been hiding her emotions well, as Plo Koon began comforting her, telling her that if she thought of anything like Kamino, then let him know and he would help her. She smiled up at him and thanked him before he continued. He told her he had managed to convince the council to temporarily make him her master. Ahsoka's smile widened and tears formed in the corners of her eyes as both relief and joy flooded her. It hadn't been a question of if, but when she would get a new master, and who it could be had been worrying her not only since Kellex, but since she had heard Sora Bulq's name in the High Council chamber. Part of her always knew that Master Bulq would leave, and she would be masterless, and having it come true only made it worse. She was relieved that it was at least temporarily solved and that Plo Koon was there for her. He was even the person she had wanted to be her original masters of Anakin. This made the painfully slow days that followed bearable, as she got to be constantly by Plo Koon's side. A benefit of this was that she had access to all the information that he got told. He didn't even try to hide any of it from her. Things got busy as there was a lot of work that needed to be done in order to move the Jedi off Coruscant. However, from the updates, the progress of moving was slower than anticipated, primarily due to the Senate protesting the move. It was also from these updates, a few weeks later, that she heard the battle droids were starting to be stationed on planets. In response, to help appease the Senate, the Jedi High Council quickly decided to send teams of Jedi to these worlds to investigate to figure out if these actions were both legal and allowed by the planets. They were always trying to appease the Senate, both before and now. At least now they're helping the people at the edge of the galaxy this time. The situation continued like this for over a year. The Jedi stuck between the Senate and what came to be known as a Confederacy of Independent Systems. So far though, the Jedi had appeased the Senate more than working to move the main Jedi Temple off Coruscant. Unnervingly, several Jedi had also been killed or gone missing while on these diplomatic missions to the worlds the CIS had stationed droids on. But unlike after Kellex, Paladins were still permitted to accompany their masters, even as several lost their lives. So I could become worried for far after the first Padawan came back dead, so after voicing it with Plo Koon, they began going on missions together. Having two Keldors, a species known for being wise in their sense of justice, helped the law in the negotiation and peacefully resolving situations when they came up. Ahsoka didn't have the same worry for Anakin. She did worry, but she knew that he could survive worse. Because of the combination of Obi-Wan's diplomatic skills and Anakin's impatience, they were often sent to some of the worst places, but she knew that they would be fine as long as they stuck together. With a suggestion from Ahsoka, Plo Koon, like-minded Jedi they had told, focused their efforts on worlds that had sharp splits in their factions. Worlds that were at risk of civil war, whether they had been occupied or not. From her experience, these were the worlds that had been most problematic for the Republic war effort, and the ones most devastated. Jedi going to the worlds before the CS came inadvertently started to slow its spread as, when they went to occupy the planet, there was an opposition and united front in place. Regarding the CIS, the Republic claimed they had no right to intervene as of now, as all the planets CIS stationed droids on claimed they had welcomed them, even going so far as to say that Jedi deaths weren't because of the CIS. The CIS also just bypassed any world that managed to publicly oppose them and moved on to another planet, further delegitimizing the Republic's say in the matter. However, the spread of the CIS had started to move to rearm the Republic. As it stood, the Republic had no standing army or navy, only planetary defense forces that were woefully undermanned and under-equipped with outdated equipment. Though the Senate still couldn't decide if the CIS was forcibly occupying planets or being aggressive, multiple defense contracts had already been signed with several companies to produce more advanced equipment, and a recruitment drive for the military had commenced. Though it was only peaceful on the surface, the day of the first battle of Geonosis came and went without active war breaking out. It made Ahsoka a bit more at ease knowing that, even by a small amount, there was more peace in the galaxy than there had been before, and it was all somehow thanks to her involvement. This didn't last long though, as a few months after this, word reached the Republican Jedi that droids were starting to actively invade planets now, sparing none that resisted, and an unofficial declaration of war had been declared on the Republic. The Jedi at first scrambled to stop these bloody invasions, but after dozens of Jedi fell in battle, and it appeared that the CIS was only after the Outer Rim, That council recalled all members that were in the path of the CIS and attempted to organize a front against them. Ahsoka, Fari, Night Owl, and Plo Koon were on Ryloth hoping to Twi'lek resistance when the order to get back to Coruscant came. Knowing that it was best to obey, they were prepared to depart after some final coronation with Champ Syndulla. However, as they walked to their shuttle, Ahsoka felt a force presence that she hadn't felt for a while. One she had fought to forget. One that had grown darker. She instinctively ignited her lightsabers, shocking those around her, but the Weequay walked out of the shadows as she turned to face him. This prompted Plo Koon to ignite his lightsaber, but Far and her master were still confused as they ignited theirs. It was only then that Ahsoka remembered that she hadn't told Far what she believed to have happened to her master. Sora Bulq slowly walked towards him, hands partially raised as if surrendering, and warmly greeted Ahsoka when he got close. Ahsoka stayed silent, so he continued, telling her that he hadn't come to fight or at the orders of Dooku. Instead, he was here to help them. He explained, saying he'd like to believe they hadn't fallen to the dark side of the Kellics, that he was just taking an opportunity presented to him, but he wasn't sure if they would believe that. Either way, he had gone close to Dooku and had managed to get evidence that Chancellor Palpatine was a Sith Lord, that Dooku was his apprentice, and that the CIS and the Droid Army were under Palpatine's control. Ahsoka refused to believe his change of heart. His presence was still too dark, but Plo Koon told him that he would give him one last chance. Ahsoka wanted to argue, but knew that it was her emotions talking, not her head. Her emotions were clouding her judgment, so she would trust Plo Koon as he trusted her. Sora Bulq told him he was going to give him his lightsaber and a data card containing the evidence. Then he would allow them to arrest him. Ahsoka took the initiative, closing the gap to collect his lightsaber, which clipped to her belt, and the data card, which tossed Plo Koon, before using binders that Plo Koon tossed to her to restrain him. They then quickly got to the shuttle, Ahsoka staying behind Sora Bulq, lightsaber still ignited. He tried to talk with her, but she just ignored him and he soon stopped trying. The shuttle remained silent the entire time back to Coruscant, though Fari's worried gaze was constantly on Ahsoka the whole trip, but she didn't want to say anything in front of Bulq. When the shuttle landed in the Jedi Temple and the ramp lowered, there were temple guards waiting led by Syndraulic. Before they could take Bulq though, he turned towards Ahsoka, telling her that she had caught Count Dooku's attention, and possibly Palpatine's. He urged her to be careful, before the temple guards pulled him along with Plo Koon and Night Owl following, leaving Ahsoka and Fari. They went back to Fari's room, not wanting to have anything to do with Sora Bulq because Ahsoka's room was so connected with his. Ahsoka was still on edge and fiddling with Bulq's lightsaber. It looked to be the same one they had the day he had left, but she could feel the dark side from it. She waited till she was in Fari's room before she ignited it. The crimson blade was proof that Bulq had fallen to the dark side. He had bled his crystal. As she looked at the crimson lightsaber, without prompting, she told Fari what Bulq had done in her previous life, how she had feared a repeat of that, how he seemed to prove her worst fear by disappearing after the Kellics, and how she felt his presence darken their bond in the Force. They talked for a bit more before Fari urged Ahsoka to spar with her, knowing that it helped calm her down. Fari was still behind her in terms of skill and Force prowess, but she still held her own and gave Ahsoka a good duel. It was in the training hall that Plo Koon and Syndraulic found them, and Ahsoka realized that they had been there for several hours. She urged Fari to go get something to eat, but she insisted that she stay and hear what they had to say, and Ahsoka didn't argue. Syndraulic spoke first, telling them that Sora Bulq was being held in the temple's detention center for the time being, but she could visit him if she wanted. She didn't say anything to this, so Plo Koon started talking, telling her that even though there were several members that wanted to confront Chancellor Palpatine for being a Sith, cooler heads had prevailed, and it was decided that they would first have the Senate kick him out of office before they went after him. They remembered how the wording was on the inhibitor chips in the clones, and they didn't want to risk doing something that seemed would go along with the Sith's plan. Master Khalil would head this with a few others, while Master Windu was hand-selecting a group to go after Chancellor Palpatine once they had been kicked out of office. They talked for a bit more before Plo Koon and Syndraulic excused themselves, their schedules now even busier. As all they could do now was wait and hope, Ahsoka and Fari went and got something to eat before heading off to their beds. Ahsoka arrived back in her room as the sun was setting, but she couldn't seem to sleep even after several hours. Giving up, she got out of bed and went to her desk where she had set Bulq's lightsabers beside hers. The darkness emanating from it was overbearing the small, barren room. Picking it up, she sat on the floor and began meditating. Ahsoka didn't know what she was doing. She felt that she should do this. She deconstructed the lightsaber, letting the crimson crystal fall into her hand as the rest of the lightsaber components fell to the ground, forgotten. She continued to meditate, focusing this time on the crystal. The darkness from it steadily dissipated until it soon completely vanished, leaving the area around her feeling clean and pure. Ahsoka opened her eyes as the kyber crystal dropped back into her hand. She gazed at it. It was like ice, without a trace of crimson or any color for that matter. She didn't know what she had just done. Records on the Sith were hidden, so she didn't know much on kyber crystals that had been bled, or if it was possible to purify them. But it was believed that there was no coming back once something had been corrupted by the dark side. She was tempted to hold on to the crystal as is, wanting to investigate, but thought better of it and placed it back in the lightsaber. This time, eyes open, watching the process. She stood, her legs cramping as the light from the morning sun began to reflect off the reconstructed lightsaber. As she was about to ignite it, her comlink lit up. It was a message from Plo Koon, telling her to come to the temple map room immediately. So clipped the lightsaber to her belt again, without thinking, along with hers, and rushed out of the room. Arriving at the temple map room, she surprised Plo Koon and some other Jedi. Plo Koon likely hadn't expected her to be there this quickly, and she admitted that she had already been awake. He probably suspected that she hadn't slept, but didn't comment on it. Only a worried look before he turned back to the holopad in his hand. She often had sleepless nights after coming back, something that she had thought she had overcome, but had resurfaced after Kellogg's, as well as the fight that she had recently been in, and it had caught Plo Koon's attention. He tried to help her, but not much progress had been made. More Jedi quickly arrived, and once the little group had gathered, Plo Koon spoke. Master Windu had gone against the Council's decision, and, as soon as he got his strike team together, he went after Palpatine. It didn't appear they actually made a move against him though, instead sealing him on course by monitoring and restricting traffic off-world. Palpatine had since disappeared, having last been seen right before the Senate meeting had begun that morning. Master Windu apparently followed him into the Undercity, but he wasn't actively communicating with them. Since then, the CIS had launched a major offensive forward, and they suspected that Count Dooku was trying to get to Palpatine. They would let Master Windu clean up his mess and deal with Palpatine, while Master Leia dealt with the Senate. Right now, they need to stop the CIS before they reach their objective, whether it be Coruscant or not. Plo Koon uses holomap projector in the center room to send Jedi across the galaxy to collect whatever ships, fighters, and bombers were ready, and then went to Kamino himself with Ahsoka to get the clone army. Though he knew that they were under the Sith, and the Council had wanted to stay away from them. Simply put, the Republic didn't have the manpower to man all the ships to stop the CIS's advance. They needed the clones, even with the risk that they would betray them. Master Windu had already disobeyed the Council anyway, so he wasn't worried. Once on Kamino, Ahsoka quickly realized that Plo Koon had made Kamino the staging point for the gathering Republic forces. It took late into the next day before most everything had gathered, and for the clones to board and familiarize themselves with the ships and starfighters. They had started removing the chips from the clones as soon as Plo Koon and Ahsoka had arrived, starting with the commanding officers, and the ones that would be close to the Jedi, especially prioritizing the crew of the vendor Plo Koon had designated as a flagship. Ahsoka knew that they would probably need more time, not only for everyone to get accustomed to their station, but also to get more chips removed from the clones. But there was no more time. The CIS forces were making astounding progress forward. If that progress continued, then they would be able to Coruscant within a week. This gathering Republic Navy was already on the other side of the galaxy with the CIS fleet between them and Coruscant. So, early in the morning of the fourth day since Ahsoka and Plo Koon arrived on Kamino, Plo Koon set out in command of the ad hoc fleet of vendors, acclimators, hammerheads, and a vast swarm of other ships, both old and new. Ships that are from planetary defense forces or fresh from the shipyards. Ships that are built for combat and ones built for diplomatic missions. Ships that are crewed by mixed species or entirely by clones. It took another couple of days for this fleet to catch up to the CIS fleet, And it was at this point when Plo Koon took Ahsoka aside. He told her that he trusted her and believed in what she had been through. It was for this reason that he was secretly handing over command of the fleet to her, as she was the only one with the experience to command it. She didn't try to argue, instead feeling relieved. This had been a worry for her, and even though she knew she shouldn't command it, she knew that she was the only one that had a chance at completely stopping CIS's advance. It is because of her intimate knowledge from the 3 years of war she had been through with this same enemy that she was this confident. Ahsoka followed Plo Koon back to the bridge of the vendor they were on. She gazed out of the assortment of ships, some of which she herself had never had under her command, and prepared herself mentally for what lay ahead. This was drastically different from her previous first command over Ryloth, and she would do her utmost to make the outcome better than that one. No, she would stop the CIS and the Sith behind it in their tracks. She would make them feel with everything that they had put her through, both from before and now. Ahsoka would see victory, no matter what.